put them up there for me. And of course, I'm supposed to be using an iPad. I'm not. All right. So why don't we just start? So here we are. For those of you who are not aware, on Tuesday morning, actually Monday night, Adobe dropped releases. It's called the June 2020 release to all the Creative Cloud products. So it's not just Photoshop and Lightroom, but you can see all of them. And one of the big changes, at least visually, is we've got these new icons. You guys can see that at the bottom there. And let me just move my video screen. I'm going to move it to the side. Actually, no, I'm just going to leave it right there because it should be out of the way. Just making sure we get everything working the way it should. All right, so if we look here, we've got all these different icons, and you can see some of them here, such as Lightroom Classic, have gone to a 3-character name. So let me know what you guys think about these. I know some people love them, some people hate them. I did prefer the bezel around the edges. I kind of see why they took it away, because maybe it gives them more space because they're trying to jam more letters in there. So that's kind of nice, and also the product line is growing so much that not everything is going to fit within the two. And also there was a blog on Adobe. Let me explain that. So right now, Lightroom Classic is a 3-digit. We've got Photoshop. Then there's going to be Photoshop Camera and other ones that are using 3 digits. So they're just kind of Photoshop Mobile probably. So they're pushing out like these different brands, and that's why they're doing that. The colors are definitely more muted. Like I'm not seeing as much variety in the colors as we would see before. Particularly, if the video products, Premiere, After Effects, and Audition all have the same color. Bridge is black. I guess that's the branding. So these are video products. Then we've got photography products here. Photoshop, Lightroom are the same color. And then print, InDesign, of course, those are separate colors. So I'm not sure what's going on there as far as that branding. All right, let's open up some images and have a look and see what's new in here. So we're going to click OK, open. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit my desktop here and open up some images for us. So here's our Live from Lockdown. And let's have a look in here. So I'm just going to grab this one first to start with. So let's just click open. And right now what we have is the new Camera Raw. So I want to talk about this momentarily because it's a big deal. So what we have here is, instead of having individual tabs, we have everything in one panel. Now we can also go in here, and as we open up each panel, we can go through the different panels and view them like that. So right now I'm in a different kind of a mode here. If we right click, you can see we've got options. We've got single panel and multi-panel. If I choose the multi-panel, I can have more than one open at a time, or I can actually right click and choose to expand all. So now if we do this, we can just scroll through one big long super panel. And if we change it here to single panel, that means as we just select one, all the other panels will close. So that means whatever we want to look at is going to be right there on the surface. On the side here, we have the buttons. Now I want to mention this. It's kind of interesting because I've got mixed feedback from people here. And a lot of people said, hey, I really love these new panels. Other people said I hate them. And so I ran a poll on here on YouTube, here on our Photoshop Cafe channel there. We have a community tab there. And so I ran a poll, and so far we've got quite a few people on that poll. And in fact, why don't I bring it up and I'll show you what people think about it. Just bring up YouTube on there and I'll show you guys. Because I was wondering, because usually people that hate things are definitely more vocal than people that love things. So here's the page. Let me bring that up right now. And so speaking about these panels, there's the community tab. And so we did a poll here. Feel free to jump in, guys, and join it. But this is about, so far, 78 votes. And look at this. We're 64% people love them. They're so much better. Hate them, put them back was 10%. And don't care is 26%. Now, of course, I didn't give them a, yes, they're good, they're bad. I definitely put these very strongly, like mushrooms. I love mushrooms or I hate them. I happen to love them. So overwhelmingly, people do like this. So it's not going to go away. So get used to it. But here's the nice thing about it. If you're used to using Lightroom, this is a lot more like what the panels are like inside of Lightroom. So it's going to take a little minute to get used to it. Now, some of the other things you might be looking for, you might have trouble finding. And I'm going to address those right now because I've already got some feedback from people from the articles I've done. So if we click here, this is where the presets are. So if you're looking for certain panels, you know, snapshots, different things like that, radial filter, we can go in, these panels are there. So as we click on each one of these, it's going to open it. Now, I had people saying that the crop tool disappeared. Let me explain this. This is not new inside of Camera Raw. It's always been this way. If you open an image directly in Camera Raw, like I did just now, you're going to have the crop tool. So there's our crop, there's our straighten is going to be there. You know, it's all here under the same tool. Now the thing is, you won't see there's our straighten tool right there. Click and drag to straighten, right? Now, if you open an image from Photoshop, if you open it as a filter, the crop tool's not there. It never has been there. And the reason for that is because you can work with a layer from Photoshop. So when you go into Camera Raw from a layer, you don't want that to resize the whole image. That'd be very dangerous. You want to do your cropping inside of Photoshop for your master image. So if you want crop and straighten, just open your image directly into Camera Raw like I did here. And all you need to do is just right click on the image and say open in Camera Raw. If it's a RAW file, it's automatically going to open in Camera Raw just by double clicking it. All right, so that's one thing to bring up here. There's other things to bring up too. Like I've had some comments from people saying, hey, certain tools are missing. And the tools are not missing. Sometimes when you're working in here, there's other little disclosure triangles. And let me show you that right now. I'm going to grab a local brush and I'm going to show you a couple of cool tips here that I just figured out. Like I didn't even know about these when I did the original tutorial. And by the way, Bruce will put a link in there. I've got a comprehensive tutorial on Photoshop new release and a comprehensive link there for the Lightroom new release. So he'll give you those links right now into that chat. If you don't have the chat, I'll put these in the links underneath later on. So check that out. And so let's have a look here. So yes, you can open from Bridge. Someone had a question there. Yep. You can definitely right click from Bridge and then choose Open in Camera Raw. That's where you would do it. So here we are. And then so people are like, okay, so we are in the brushes here and I want to do some work with the brushes. And in fact, why don't we do that right now? I'm just going to zoom in on this image. Let's do that. And of course, I'm still trying to figure out some of these. So let's just choose here, Fit and View. There we go. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start selecting her here. Notice nothing's happening. You can't see anything, and that's because I haven't turned on the mask options. If I turn on the mask option, you can see, oh, okay, there we go. I'm selecting it right now. But the auto mask is on, but people are like, oh, where's the auto mask? Okay, so if you look under here, we have these little triangles, and under the triangles, we have more options. So here are the options for the brush, and this includes the auto mask option, so it detects the edges for us. So it's there. So if you can't find something, just hit that little arrow key and that'll pop it open. But what I want to show you is a new feature, which I think is absolutely wonderful. We're going to turn off the mask options. And what I want to do is I want to adjust the color of this. But before I do, notice something. This has always been a big hassle for me when I use local tools such as the adjustment brush, gradient, and the radial brush. How many times have you gone in there and then the first thing you've got to do is you've got to go up and you've got to click and you've got to reset the colors, right? Because the colors have got whatever you used last time. Notice right now everything's zeroed out. So here's something this was not really talked about. Something I discovered on my own. Reset sliders automatically is put in the bottom there. So that means every time if you have this turned on, every time you go into those local tools, it's automatically going to zero out those adjustments for you so you don't have to do that every time. Now, if you want it to be sticky and remember them like it was, just turn off reset the sliders automatic, and then it will just remember the last setting. So for me, this is huge. I love that. Big, big time saver. And as you can see, we've got another thing here. Oh, well, you know what? I'll get to that. So let's go down to the hue. And so this is new. The hue slider is in the localized tool. So watch what happens when I adjust with her hair here as I change the hue. Look at this. I can change the color now to anything I want. So this gives a full 360-degree adjustment. Before, we could do a color overlay, which was just kind of not getting the same effect. And of course, you know, we could go in up the top here and use temperature and tilt and not really get all the colors, but look at this. Now we can get all the colors. So while we have this hue selected, let's see how good this is. I'm just going to use my pen here. So check this out. I can go in here now and I want to paint. Look at this. I'm just painting. And of course that auto mask is turned on. And look at this. I'm applying those settings, those same adjustments. Look at this, to the rest of her green. And I'm just doing this very, very roughly. But the auto mask is actually pretty good. And look at this. Now she's matching the other girl. I'm wondering if I could even get the face. Let's try the makeup on the face. Let's see what we can do here. Maybe make this brush a little smaller and start to paint in there. Boom, look at that. I even able to adjust that makeup. And, you know, of course we could get into these little areas here and clean those up. But look at that. So now if I go into this hue, I can adjust it. Look at this. I can slide it and just, it's so easy to just adjust the color of any part of that photo. Now, if you want to be more like precise when you're going in here, we've got this use fine adjustments. When I turn that on, notice I can drag really fast and it's just moving a little bit. So this enables us to dial in a nice clean amount there in the number there. So the other thing is, if you don't want to keep going in there, what I'm going to do is just hold down the Alt or Option key, and now it's in fine adjustment. If I release it, notice it goes away, and now I can move very, very quickly. Looks like we got a couple of questions in there. Let me just quickly look at these. Someone installed it today. It was a disaster. Okay. Is Photoshop Camera Raw a new thing? No. We'll talk about Photoshop Camera. Okay, so let's talk about some things. Okay, so I've got some questions here. One of them was about the overlay. Why doesn't that appear when I automatically adjust? What this does is it shows the pin. See the overlay pin here? I just dragged that. I probably don't want to drag my adjustment. Overlay shows that. Shows those things that go over the top, pins, different things. And the mask options, if I turn this on, this turns on the mask so we can see it, and also we can change the color of that mask in here. So that's kind of the difference between those two there. And Photoshop Camera is a totally new thing. It's kind of like Snapchat filters, really. You can download that for free on the App Store. So just go grab that. And then, of course, Photoshop Camera Raw is completely different. So anyway, so I love this ability to be able to go in here and just kind of adjust these colors. And so I can see it for useful things such as this. I could see it for other things like, you know, remember when you sometimes work in areas where you've got a little light pollution, like maybe you've lit an area, but there's some light coming in through the window from a fluorescent light or something, and the colors are kind of getting a little weird. Maybe one side of the face is different. So we can use this local hue to go in and adjust and fix these kind of things. So it's super, very, very useful. All right, let's have a look here and see what else we've got. Let me just bring up my notes over here. Okay. So yeah, there's a lot of other things I just want to show quickly. And here's something else I just discovered is if I turn off, let me turn on the mask option so we can see the mask. And if I have the auto mask turned off, and say I'm trying to mask something like, you know, here, and then I go over there, and then I want to undo the mask, and I hit the Alt or Option key. So how many times has this happened to you guys, you know, when you're going into the brush, and then, you know, we've got the two options, right? So we've got the brush and the eraser, and the brush and our eraser use a different size. So if I'm here in the brush and I'm like, hang on, I want to fix this, I'm going to make the brush larger or make the brush smaller. Let's make the brush smaller. Then you go to the eraser and now it's huge, so you've got to adjust it again. Not such a big deal, but here's the big deal is if I'm working, I hold down the Alt or Option key rather than hitting the brush. I like to do that. So I paint and then I hit the Option key and it takes away. But now it's got a separate sizing, so I've got to hold down the Option key and resize it. So if you go here and we turn this on, separate eraser size, turn that off, Alt or Option, look at that. Now the brush size is the same no matter whether we're working in the brush or the eraser. So that means if I'm working very fine detailed here and I hit the Alt or Option key, now I can go in with the same size brush and quickly clean up this. I don't know if that's a big deal for you. This is one of the undocumented features, by the way. Another undocumented feature was the one I showed you at the bottom here, reset sliders automatically. So these are super useful for me because they're just going to save me a ton of time. And then, of course, we can go in here and use the mask. And it just seems like the masking has got better. I haven't heard officially if that's the case, but it seems like the masking is working better here inside of Camera Raw. And of course, I could go in and adjust this. And remember, the settings in Camera Raw are identical to the settings inside of Photoshop. One other thing is the film strip. If I was to load up multiple photos, you can see the film strip now goes across the bottom. Now, as photographers, one of the things we're always trying to do is get more space here. Because of the shape of the monitor, we definitely want to get more space in the vertical. So of course we can go in here and we can change it back to the vertical, and that gives us more space for our photos right there. And of course we can hide the panels just by clicking. Actually, that's our before or after. We can hide our panels here very quickly and easily. And another thing that's nice is a keyboard shortcut. The backslash key has come back for before and after. It used to be backslash, and then for the longest time they changed it to the P key because they had all these different things we could look at here, and then we had to use different keyboard shortcuts to reveal all of these. But now it's backslash, same as Lightroom. These adjustments are the same as Lightroom, so it makes it a lot easier now if you're working in Photoshop or Lightroom to go backwards and forwards between the two. Now remember, Photoshop and Lightroom have exactly the same processing engine in here. And there's some other things in here, such as ISO presets and different things like that I'm going to show in the Lightroom segment. I'm just going to show one more thing here. When you are inside of Camera Raw here, let me just click away. We're just going to click onto our regular adjustments. And you brought it in as a layer, and you don't have that crop tool available. You can still straighten your photos. What you want to do is go down to geometry. And then under geometry, make sure you turn everything on, and then just use our rotate tool, and we can straighten our photo right there. So we still have the ability to straighten those photos. And of course, when we do that, that grid will come on automatically, which is once again an adjustable setting. All right, so that's kind of going in there pretty quickly. Let's see if we've got any other questions before I move into the next one. See if anything we just need to get there. So there is a way to turn the mask on. Still, of course, yeah, Photo Maker, the way we can turn the mask on and off is to just go there and just turn mask options. That will turn it on and off. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to reset this. And by the way, these are different. If I hold down the Alt or the Option key, it still will change these to a cancel to a reset. So I'll click on that and we'll reset everything. And we've got our options here if we want to open as an object or as a photo. If you hold down the Shift key, you can still click that and it will open as a smart object. Now this weird link here is still there to go to the preferences. But the nice thing too is there's an actual preferences icon up there, so we can click in there. So you can change the default to open as a smart object. Then that will change to open object. If I turn it off, it will open as a regular image. So depending on how you like to work, you can do any of those. So why don't we just open this inside of Photoshop? And I'm going to open up a couple of other images because I want to show what is perhaps the biggest new feature. And this is, let's open these pictures. This is selections, automatic selections. So how much time do you spend making selections around images? So what you want to do is go down here and we can either choose object selection or quick selection. When we do, we have this option to do select subject. Now this is not new, it's just a lot better. Let me click on it right now. Notice it's a lot quicker. That happened almost instantly. And it does a much better job than it did before. Check out the review that I did. I posted, I've got side-by-side pictures of before and afters of how it works. And then if I go into select and mask, we can see, you know, it's not all the way there, but look at this. It's doing a much better job of hair. It's doing a much better job of the different areas without doing anything. So what they did is they trained the AI, which is Adobe Sensei, which is artificial intelligence, which recognizes that it's a person, or it recognizes it's a cat or a car or whatever it is, and then it makes those selections based on that artificial intelligence. So what they did is they updated it for portraits. So they really focused on training it better to get photographs. Let's have a look at another example here. We're just going to click here, and I'm going to choose select subject. And of course, that was dumb. I've got to select the proper layer. Let's try select subject again. And because it selected just that layer. And look at this, boom. So there's some things to note in here compared to how it was before. One of the things I love is it gets into these little nooks and crannies. If you guys remember before, it always missed these areas. We always had these webbing kind of effects around the sharp areas. And look at this, it's even attempting to pick up some of the individual hairs. So if we click on select a mask, look at that. That's without doing anything. And these are images I just selected, earlier on today. These are not, images that I went through thousands to find the ones that work best. These are just, typical images. Of course, it's against a white background, but still, how much time does it take for you to, clear something out against that background? Here's another example, one of my photos here. And if I just choose the select subject, and look at that. I used to spend, even for these simple things, we'd spend a bit of time doing that, but look, it's getting in there. Yeah, there's a little work, and you can go and you can touch it up and do things like that, but definitely for a starting place, it's a lot better. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to demonstrate to you how it's AI and how well it really works. Because look at this, we've got multiple people, and this is definitely a lot harder to make a selection around than the ones against the white background. Because I know there was probably comments in there. Was there comments in there about that? But I definitely usually get those when I do a tutorial and there's white background. Of course, if you're shooting professionally, you will be shooting against a white seamless. But anyway, check this out. I'm going to choose select subject, and look at this. So obviously it's not perfect, but this is really, really interesting to me. This is telling a lot, because see these areas, these flaps or whatever you want to call them, or these interesting Tetris headsets. These are not normal for people to be wearing these. And look what it's doing. It's using the AI, and you can see it's at work as it's thinking, okay, she's got a bun. Let's select that bun. Maybe she's got a hat on. Maybe she's got a hat. So it's actually attempting to make these selections based on what the AI thinks a head should look like. And I think that's really interesting and really telling, the fact that it does that. And I mean, and for 4 people, that's not bad for 1 click. Yes, there's going to be more work to do in there and stuff like that, but I'm pretty impressed. Okay, so David says, I used the new select version, flyaway here, and it really didn't work at all. I wonder if I'm missing something. No, it's still, here's the thing. The select and mask is not perfect. It's not going to get you a perfect selection, but what it's doing is it's getting you, a lot closer to it. So you'll find from some photos, you're going to find that it's going to do a much better job than it is on other ones. Now, I got some comments from people who have updated and said that the object selection tool is gone. And I'll tell you why that is. It's because you were using a preset. Maybe you had a workspace, a preset workspace that you've created in an earlier version before Photoshop 2020 that didn't have this tool. So every time you update, this tool is going to disappear. So what you need to do is go here with these 3 ellipses and click on those 3 ellipses, click and hold, and you're going to get edit toolbar. So now the toolbar is going to pop up, and here's the option. So what you want to do is just hit restore defaults, click done, and now this tool will appear. Now before you do anything, go to your workspace here, and then you want to update your workspace. So what you want to do is click new workspace and then just give it the same name or a slightly different one, and then just delete the old one or whatever you need to do. But if you update that workspace, this is never going to happen to you again. Otherwise, next time Adobe does another release, it's going to happen. This is going to keep disappearing because this tool didn't exist before Photoshop 2020. So there's no way that preset can have that tool show. So hopefully that makes sense. So just be aware of these kind of things when different updates and things like that happen. And there was an older article I did a while ago where you can see it there on the YouTube channel as a video, how to fix all the things broken in 2020. Have a look at that, and that's going to fix a lot of things. Another thing I'm going to show you while we're in this troubleshooting is if you have problems with some weird things with the screen redraw, or things are just not working right, go under Photoshop and we're going to choose Preferences, and I believe it's under Performance. Let's have a look. And yes, it is. So if you're having problems with stuff, go in here, turn on Legacy Compositing, and restart Photoshop. What that's going to do is it's going to load in the Legacy Compositing engine, and that's the way that Photoshop handles layers and the way it handles a lot of things. And that will also fix a lot of problems people could be having. Another problem that you could have is if certain overlays and things like that are not showing, make sure Use Graphics Processor is turned on. Also, if you're troubleshooting, this is a good place to turn that off to see if it fixes the problem, because if it does, then it's an issue with your video card. So those are just a couple of little extra things there when it comes to kind of working like that. Now let me show you another thing that is really nice inside of Photoshop. And I'm actually going to show you how to create a pattern. So what we're going to do is we're just going to choose File, New, and then we want to just create a small pattern. Let's make it something like, say, let's do 50 pixels by 50 pixels. Okay, so we're going to get a 50 by 50, and background doesn't matter. It could be black, could be white, doesn't really matter. And let's click Create. All right, so we've got this. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to zoom in on it, and I'm going to select the top half of it with the selection tool. And now I just want to fill that with black. Control backspace, so that would be Command Delete to do that. And all we're doing is just, we got one half black, one half white. I'm going to select the whole thing just by dragging with my selection tool, and then I'm going to go under the Edit. So we created it half black, half white. Select all. Then we're going to choose Edit. And then what we're going to do is go down to Define Pattern. And if we click Define Pattern, I'll call it Scanline. We're actually adding a pattern into Photoshop. And if you want to see what that is, if we go up under the window now and we bring open our Patterns panel, you can see there it is. It's being added. So it's very easy to add different patterns, and they're going to apply in the Patterns panel. So the nice thing about the Patterns panel is we can just drag it into the object. So let's have a look at this. Why don't we do something like a TV scanline effect? So I'm going to take this and just drag it in and release, and look at that. We get the scanline effect right there. So I'm going to go under the layers, and notice what happened when we drag it in. It just simply gives us an overlay with a layer mask. And I can change the blend mode here to something, like maybe a soft light. Drop the opacity down a little bit. And now we get that TV scanline effect. So what if we wanted to do something more like, you remember it was really popular to do that 45-degree diagonal stripes. Were very, very popular. In fact, that idea came from Too Advanced, and everybody copied it. And it's still a very popular kind of a style that people do. But it's hard to create a repeating pattern at 45 degrees. Like, trust me, I've done it, and it's not easy. But now if we double click here, we can go into the pattern fill presets, and now we have an angle. So I can just change this to 45 degrees. And now we get those very, very easy. If I wanted a lenticular effect, I could change it to 0. And just rotate this. Hold down the Shift key, 90 degrees. Now we've got a, whoops, make sure we don't nudge it. There we go. And so now we can rotate these patterns. So all the different patterns that you have, whether they're ones that you've created or presets or old presets, they're all rotating. So it's not just the new ones, but all patterns can now rotate here inside of Photoshop. So I think that's kind of useful there. So anyway, that's a lot of the stuff we have in Photoshop. I want to jump in and show you something in Lightroom right now. And some of the things in Lightroom are also going to apply to Camera Raw. So I figured rather than being redundant, why don't I just do it once and show you them both. Let's have a look here. All right, so let's just go ahead and close out these. You know what? I want to keep this one for some reason, and I'm just going to right click and I'm going to close others. And I'm just doing that really just so I can show off that we can do that. All right, let's open up Lightroom Classic. Now, Lightroom Classic, oh boy, the naming of Lightroom. So fortunately, they've kept this one Lightroom Classic. If you're confused about the naming of Lightroom, welcome to the club. Everybody is. But let me clear it up for you. It's actually quite simple. So the original Lightroom that everybody used was Lightroom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then Lightroom 6 also branched off and became Lightroom CC. If you guys remember that, Lightroom 6 was the box. Lightroom CC was exactly the same version, but it was available in the cloud. Then they stopped doing the box, and then Lightroom 7 became Lightroom CC 20, whatever year they put on it. And that was the time also that another Lightroom came out, which was Lightroom Mobile. And eventually what happened is a Lightroom CC became a Lightroom Classic, and then Lightroom Mobile became Lightroom CC. So I think you guys remember that. I think that happened last year. And then so Lightroom CC is the newer Lightroom. It's the one where there's a mobile phone, there's an iPad, there's a desktop, and it syncs in the cloud. You can also store files locally, but that's a cloud syncing, cloud first platform. It's an ecosystem. Lightroom Classic is the Lightroom you've always known. So now what they've done is they've kept it Lightroom Classic. We've got this new icon, but Lightroom CC, they've dropped the name CC out of it as they have Photoshop CC. The CC name has just been dropped, even though they're part of the Creative Cloud. Now it's Photoshop 2020. And it's Lightroom Classic, and it's just Lightroom. So in case you were confused, Lightroom Classic is the Lightroom you've always known and loved. Lightroom is the system, the Lightroom system. You've got the mobile phone, the app, all those things. So that's just to clear up the two Lightrooms. So Lightroom Classic is the Lightroom. It's always been around. Lightroom is the new Lightroom. Does that make sense? So, and by the way, if your screen freezes, just hit the refresh, because sometimes that happens when we're streaming. There's a lot of traffic on the internet, especially, with people at home, students studying from home, a lot more internet traffic. So just refresh if that happens. And by the way, guys, if you haven't hit that like button yet, please do me a favor and hit that like button right now. What it does is it helps the algorithm just kind of push out the live stream and let people know that it's going. That's a little thumbs up, in case you're not sure. And also, if you haven't subscribed yet, there's a subscribe button there. If you don't mind just hitting that subscribe button, and you'll get notifications, turn those on. You're not going to get spammed. I can't spam you with those notifications. But what it's going to do is when we do these live streams, it's going to let you know. It's just going to send out a notification. And also when I upload a new tutorial, if you turn the notifications on, I'll let you know when I upload them. Also, if you're a subscriber, you'll see a little red thing will appear when you're in YouTube to let you know we do live streams. Because right now we're doing a live stream every Thursday at 1 o'clock. But there's other times I'm going to just do impromptu live streams. And if you're subscribed and you've got the notifications, everything turned on, you'll know. Otherwise, you won't know when I'm doing them, because I'm not going to send out an email for every live stream. All right. Got that out of the way. Thanks, guys. Okay, so here we are inside of Lightroom Classic. Of course, the big thing here is we've got the new logo. Bigger deal for some people than others. I'll be honest. Let me be quite frank with you guys. When I first saw the new logo, I was kind of like, oh boy, what are these guys thinking? I didn't like these icons either. But I'll be honest. By now, I'm actually kind of used to them. They don't bother me at all anymore, and I actually find them, okay. Well, I've got my video products. Yeah, they're the same color. So it's pretty quick and easy to see what you're looking for. I would have preferred more variety in the color. I would have preferred bezels. There's a lot I would have preferred, but this is how we got it. And you know what? They grow in you. You get used to it. Doesn't matter. It's just a logo. All right, so let's have a look in here. Inside of Lightroom, some new things. Like one of the things is the grid is now being optimized. It's something you might not notice immediately, but notice as I'm scrolling, it's scrolling pretty smoothly. Very smoothly. Compared to before. And also you can use the up and down arrow key, by the way, to scroll up and down. So if I'm scrolling in here and I want to use the up and down arrow key, I can do that. So they put a lot of work into behind the scenes performance. That's nice. Another thing is if I click on this photo here, notice it appears in the Navigator panel, and of course also it's in the thumbnail. If I go to the develop module to make adjustments to it, let's make sure the Navigator is open so we can see it. Now here's what used to happen. When you went to make an adjustment in here, all of these would adjust at the same time, real time. So watch what happens when I adjust my exposure. Okay, watch the Navigator up on the top left. And as I release, boom, see what happened there? Now it just updated only when I released. So as I'm sliding, it doesn't. Look at the thumbnail at the bottom, same thing. So, okay, so someone was asking about the vertical, horizontal film strip in Photoshop. They couldn't change it. Okay, if you want to change that, just click and hold on that icon at the bottom, and then you can change it from horizontal to vertical. All right, so anyway, so if we look at this here, the difference, though, is because these are being delayed, it's putting the performance of the GPU into this image. And one of the things I'm noticing, as I'm sliding, it's adjusting in real time. Look at that. It's actually much, much better. There used to be a huge delay when it was doing that. So yeah, they've definitely done a good job of that performance, at least as far as, you know, I'm noticing on my system. Another thing too is the camera tethering has also been sped up. So that's another speed increase, a little boost there. So let's have a look and see what else we want to look at. We've got some adjustments here, or some changes in the UI. There's basically two things that have been updated. One is the HSL color, and in the HSL it's the same in color. You know, when we click here, we now get these little buttons. So it's not really a big deal, but that just, you know, looks a little bit more modern and nice. In the curves, it's a little bit more significant. Let me find a better image here. Let me just go to the grid view and find something that I could, because these are all bracketed for HDR or exposure blending. Okay, so I can do some adjustments with this. Let's go into the develop. And of course, you know, here's our curves. The curves I've always known and loved. You know, a little more responsive. But here's something that's interesting now. We can click here, and this will go into the parametric curves. So rather than have to choose a different setting now, we can go point curve, parametric. So parametric is good as if I just want to open up these shadows a little bit, and I don't want to affect the rest of the image. See, I can just focus it. It kind of clamps it down to that area, and you can see the different regions here: shadows, darks, lights, and highlights. And of course, we can adjust those. We can clamp them down tighter or expand them out. So that's kind of nice. So that's what the parametric will do. And let's take the, we can also drag right here on the curve itself. So we can darken that down a little bit. And then we can go to a point curve, and now we can adjust a point curve over the top. So we can have both of them working at the same time. And that's not necessarily new, but it's just kind of nice that we can just go between them on the UI now. The other thing that's new too is we right click. We've got a right clickable menu now. So we can reset the point curves. So if we want to reset it, just right click. We can reset regions. That's the regions in the parametric curve, of course. We can reset the splits, because remember, these are kind of all over the place. If I just click there, now it just puts them into the quarters, which is really nice, because before it was a little harder to do that. And of course, there's reset all. But here's the other thing that's nice. To go into the color channels now, we can just click on the color channels. And we know this is the red, the green, and the blue channel. But one of the things people might not realize is yellow is the opposite of blue. And we've got the color hinting here. And on the left there, we can see blue. On that side, we can see yellow. So if I push it here, it's going to push it more into the yellows. If I push it here, it's going to push it more into the blues. See that? So it's a lot easier to just kind of understand. Same with green. Do we want more magenta or do we want more green? And of course, we can do those according to the individual tone regions. Same thing with red. We've got reds. We can push it down here. It's going into our kind of greens there, and we're going into our reds there. So you can kind of see in the color channels now what's happening. And so if I just want to right click on here, I can delete that control point. And so maybe I want to put some reds into the highlights. Let's do that. Let's go to the blues, add a little blue there into the shadows. We can do that. And it's very kind of easy to do that. Actually, well, I'm going the wrong way. Let's add the blues in there. There we go, the blues into the shadows. And see how we're able to start to create these different coloring effects just by simply going in there and doing that in the tone curve. And once again, we can just right here and we can just reset all the channels. So that's resetting all the color channels. individually while we're on a channel. So notice that this shows channel options while a channel is selected. It shows curves options when a curve is selected. So this is kind of nice. So they've actually done quite a bit in the curves there. And, you know, anyone's got any questions or anything about that, just let me know. No, the parametric curves are not new. It's just showing how the curves panel got our design refresh. Yeah, thank you for Brightbox Studio for answering that. Yeah, so these are not new. It's just a new way of working with them, and it's just a little bit more streamlined, a little slicker there. So let's have a look at other things in here. Of course, we've got the local hue, just like we had inside the inside of Camera Raw. I already showed that. So what does that mean, local hue? That means if we're using the brush tool, now we have the hue, or we're using our radial tool, we have the hue. Or of course, if we're using the gradient, we also have the hue. And the gradient's really good for getting rid of contamination, like light contamination, things like that. So if you've got like a weird light kind of coming in the side, just do that. And now with the hue slider, you can just dial that right out. Really nice. And of course, you know, apply different kinds of special effects as well. It's also very nice. Okay, so I want to show something really interesting here. I'm actually going to show you two features, and I'm going to show you in one tutorial so you can kind of see a more practical way of doing it, because I don't want to be repetitive at all with the stuff that I've done. I've already done you know, the review. Check that out, the links. I think Bruce put the links in there. If not, just drop those links again if you don't mind, Bruce. To show you guys, I've got the article. I've got a written article and a video on Photoshop CC, all the new features, Photoshop CC, Photoshop 2020 June release. And then I've also got another article that I did on Lightroom Classic, which is what we're in right now, written steps and video of the significant features. So I'm not going to be repetitive in this, what we're doing there. So check out those, and those will show those kind of fundamentals. But there's two features I want to talk about, and I want to show them together because I got some comments from people since I dropped my articles on Tuesday. And this is going to answer some of those questions. So there's two of them. There's a thing, we've got the ISO adaptive presets, and I'm going to show you those, but I'm also going to show you how you can use those with raw defaults. Both of those are new, and raw defaults might seem like something like, oh, okay, maybe it's not that useful. But if you use these two tools together, it gives you incredible control. And let me give you an example. Say you have two cameras. Say you have a Sony a7 III, which I do, and a Canon 5D Mark IV, which I do. Now, in the low light, the Sony is actually a little bit better than the Canon. So it doesn't have as much noise in there. But the Canon maybe has a little bit more noise at a high ISO. So I would like, when I import my pictures, to automatically apply noise reduction to the high ISO pictures on the Canon camera only. And so that means when I import, it's just going to happen forever. I'm going to show you how to set up right now. It's super cool. So the first thing we need to do is we're just going to go to the library panel here. I'm just going to hit the G key to reset it. So what I need to do is I need to find two images. I need to find a high ISO and a low ISO image. So why don't we go under the search, and by the way, the / key will open that filter bar. It's a German word, filter bar. And then what we're going to do is we're going to choose metadata. And so we've got these different settings under here, and we can choose anything. And what we want to do is just go down and set it to ISO speed. So here's all the ISO shots on my library. And I have a crazy amount here, 69,000. Davey504 would like that number. If you guys are familiar with them, you'll get the joke. All right, so we've got stuff all the way up to 102,000 ISO. That's pretty high. 128,000. I'm actually curious what I've got there. I'm actually scared to click on it. Let's try 4,000 and see what we've got. Okay, so I've got my shoe. Wonderful. Or we've got a moon. That's great. Okay, so I want to be able to find this later. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to right click, and I'm just going to set a color label to this, and we'll give it purple color label. Great. Okay, so let's have a look at another one, a low ISO, maybe somewhere around about 100. I should have plenty of photos at ISO 100. Yes, I do. And so let's just grab, let's just grab this one. It doesn't really matter. In fact, we'll grab the bridge. And I'm going to give this a color label, and I'm going to set that to purple. All right, great. So now what we want to do is we're just going to filter in here by purple. Now, I don't know if you guys ever try to get the filter. If you need it, just click on filter, it slides open. That's how we get it. I'm going to click here, none, get rid of all the filtering now, so all photos are available. And I'm going to click on purple, and this is going to, why am I setting it? I want to filter. There we go. So this shows all my ones that were filtered. So I've got these two. All right, so I'm going to click this one, and I'm going to click this one. So I've got two photos selected. And what I want to do now is I want to create a preset. So I'm just going to just sync these. So the settings are going to be synced across one photo to the other, right? So we've got two photos here. Let's click on the first one. And notice the two, you can select more than one in Lightroom. Oh, and I know you can't see that in the bottom. Sorry, my picture is there. Let me just move that momentarily. Hang on one sec. There we go. All right, so we've got two down here. And then what I did is I just selected the two. So I'm just clicking between them. And what I want to do is just, I want to see the information up here in my metadata. So, of course, in the library there would show that. So why don't we go in here? Why don't I show you? So I'm clicking on that first photo. Let's have a look. We can see there, ISO 100. Click on the other one, ISO 40,000, right? So you guys can see that. Now, if you want to create this ISO preset, you need to have two photos selected of different ISOs. Okay, so the big problem with the higher ISO, of course, is noise. All right, so let's move on and just get through this quickly. So what I want to do now is I'm going to go back to the develop module. I just wanted you to see that so you know there's no shenanigans going on. So if I select this 100 ISO image, and let's go down here and we're going to have a look at our settings here under our detail. And notice noise reduction is set to 0. Let's click on this one. Noise reduction is set to 0. I'm going to turn up the noise reduction and notice how it just kind of smoothens it out. So if we look at that before and after, so we're just kind of cleaning up the luminance. I'm going to take it to a value that we all know, that's 50. All right, so both of these selected now. All I need to do is create a preset like normal. And I'm going to choose create preset and I'm going to call it noise. Noise R for noise reduction. And all you need to do here is turn on create adaptive ISO adaptive preset. Now you could turn off all of these and just turn on noise reduction here if you wanted, but it doesn't really matter. Why don't I just turn them all off just to show you? Okay, so we've got only noise reduction on there now. And I'm going to click create. That's it. So now check this out. If I go back to another photograph, like what's the ISO on this one? Okay, so there's an ISO 100. There's an ISO 200. So check this out. If I go in here and I apply this preset to this photo, let's go to develop. And the user preset was I created. Where are we? Noiser. There we go. Click on Noiser. Noise reduction is at 0. Now, if I click on this one at 200 and I apply Noiser, notice now the noise reduction came up a little bit. So this is adaptive. So that means that the higher the ISO, the more of this is going to be applied. So it's going to balance it between the two. It's really quite amazing. So if I go back here and let's find another high ISO image, and this is just the first part we're doing here. So I'm going under ISO speed. I just want to clear these filters. So why don't we just clear that right now? And I want something at a high ISO. Let's try 32. Terrible photo, but it doesn't matter. So we're going to go under the develop, watch what happens here. Look at it, noise reduction 0. Apply this preset, noiser, boom. And now we've got a 40. So this is adaptive. So it's super useful just to apply these things automatically. Now, if we want to just have this happen on one particular camera and not another camera, we can go up under Lightroom Classic, choose our preferences. And under our preferences, was I hiding that? No, you can see the noise reduction there. Good. So under preferences here, we've got a master, and this applies the presets whatever we want. I'm just going to skip all of that. That's all in my other review. So I want to go to a specific camera here. I want to go to my Canon 5D Mark IV. Now, check it out. If I have more than one, I can choose serial numbers, and I can literally apply it to different 5D Mark IVs if I wanted to get that granular. But what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to, when I've got this 5D Mark IV selected, that top one will select them all. So we're not going to choose serial numbers. Default, I'm going to go under preset, under user presets, and I'm going to turn on noiser and update default. So that means now, whenever I import a photograph from a Canon 5D Mark IV, that preset is automatically going to be applied, and all it's doing is adapting that noise reduction for the photo. So that means I don't have to worry about noise reduction ever again, because it's going to automatically do it on import. If I bring in a photo from the Hasselblad or the Sony or any of the other cameras, it's not going to affect it. It's only going to affect the Canon 5D Mark IV. So this is kind of how you use these kind of tools in combination. Personally, I think that is pretty slick. What do you guys think about that? Do you think that's pretty cool? I'd love to know your thoughts on that in the chats there. Yeah, and the replay will be up soon. And just let you guys know, hit the like button if you haven't hit it yet. I appreciate that. Also, hit the subscribe button, and then you'll get tutorials from me every week. Every Tuesday I do a regular tutorial. Every Thursday we do this live stream at 1, and every weekend I do a beginner's tutorial. So I don't want you guys to miss any of these. All right, let me just check here on questions, and I'll show you another feature in a second here. Just check and see if anything is pressing. Let's have a look here. Okay, so someone was asking about that separate eraser option. Now, here's an interesting question. I'm not sure if it's here in Lightroom. Let's have a look. I know it's in Camera Raw. And let's have a look in Lightroom and see if that is in here. That's something I don't know, to be honest. Might not be. Let's have a look. Yep. All right. So I'll tell you what, before I show you that again, I'm going to show, where are we in Lightroom here? Yeah, I just want to show you one other thing. Okay, so say you have a bunch of, let's go to the library panel here. Say you have a bunch of collections, like I do. I have a lot of collections in here, because I use collections all the time. So these are collections. These are the ones that I create, and I've got them here, for everything here. I've got, travel. I've got them broken into different locations. I've got events. I've got, the models split by different models, different things like that. So it can be kind of crazy trying to find things. So say I'm in here and I'm looking for stuff, and I just want to go to my Hawaii. And there it is. It can just filter directly to my Hawaii pictures, just like that. That's a terrible picture. And we can just get in there now, and so we can actually sort here under the selections here. We can just find our pictures very quickly, our collections, sorry. So we can search by those collections. So if you're like me and you have a crazy amount of collections, you can very quickly, easily find them. The other thing is you can go in here and you can add a color label now. So if you want to organize these by color labels, you also have that option. What you got there, Bruce? Is the noise reduction just for Lightroomers and ACR? The noise reduction is the same inside of ACR as it is inside of Lightroom. So it's exactly the same settings. In fact, all the adjustments in Lightroom are the same as the adjustments in Camera Raw. In fact, watch this. If I go to this image here and I make some adjustments, let's go to Develop Module quickly and just do some stuff. I'm just going to go crazy here. Recover all the highlights. Open up all the shadows. And then I choose to right click, and I want to edit this in Photoshop, and I'm going to open it as a smart object in Photoshop. Watch this. So I go here, and Photoshop is going to open. Boom. So here we are inside of Photoshop now. And I can't get to my little corner there. That's weird. So anyway, here we are in Photoshop, and there's the Lightroom. If I double click on this now, look at this. This will take me into Camera Raw, and the settings that I made, watch this, in the basics, look at this. The settings I made are the same. It maintains the settings. So when I open an image from Lightroom as a RAW in Photoshop, it maintains all the settings I made in Camera Raw. So now I can go in here and continue to make these adjustments. So while I'm in here, the settings on that brush that someone was asking about here, when we've got the brush here, See this little ellipses? These are the options. And then you have the option here to separate eraser size. So if that's turned on, that means that the brush, let's paint with it, and the eraser are going to be different sizes. See how the size changes between the two? If I turn this off, then that means the size is not going to change between the two. So as I resize the brush in one, it's going to be sticky between both. Look at that. Super cool. I mean, this to me is like, it seems like such a small thing, but sometimes it's the little things that make a really big difference. So anyway, so that's some of the kind of the new features in there, guys. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know your favorite feature. I'm kind of curious. And also what I want to do is ask you guys to drop into the comments section there your suggestions of what you'd like to see next week in Live from Lockdown, and also what you'd like to see for our regular tutorials. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to end our new feature segment here.